Returning to work. We've talked about someone going into retirement, refunds. Now let's look at if you have a retiree who wants to come back to work for an ASRS employer. This will be in Chapter 4 in the Employer Manual. Per 38766 in the statute, it states if a retired member starts coming back to work at a 2020 status, 20 hours a week for 20 weeks or more, they're meeting membership, and their pension can be suspended and can terminate their employment. Now, there's another piece of the law that says 766.01 that states if a retiree meets certain criteria, they can keep their pension and work for that employer and receive wages from the employer. They have to reach normal retirement age. They have to be terminated in employment for at least 365 days before they can come back on a membership level, 20 hours a week for 20 weeks or more. And they have to complete what's referred to as the Return to Work SMART form within 30 days of hire. Now, on this information, if you have someone come back to work either at normal retirement or early retirement, for the first 365 days, if they come back, they have to work less than 20 hours a week for 20 weeks or more, or refer to less than 2020. After 365 days, on the 366th day, they could then come back to work on a full-time basis if they're at normal retirement. At that point, they're still early retirement, then they have to wait until they age into normal retirement. The election to work without suspending the retirement is irrevocable during the duration of their employment with you. And that individual retiree cannot earn additional service credit while they've come back to work for you while drawing that pension in the return to work status. 38764I, that's the law that refers to on the ending payroll for retirees that won the last day of membership. This is the piece why we have that filled on the retiree ending payroll verification form. It states that a person can go in retirement and not terminate as long as they're at normal retirement. However, they have to work less than 20 hours per week. How this may affect your return to work retirees is if the employer completes the field last day of membership and puts that in there, and this individual after a year or two, and they're even at full retirement, wants to come back and work for your agency on a full-time basis, or for our purposes above 2020, they will not be able to. If that ending payroll for retirement has last day of membership, to us they've indicated through you that they've just lowered their hours and not terminated. That individual will have to come back to your agency, have you resubmit the ending payroll verification form, and put in a termination date. And then that individual will have to wait another 365 days before they can come back to work on a full-time basis or a 2020 status. So it's real critical if you're going to put information, the termination date or the last day of membership. Do discuss that with the new retiree. Other responsibilities, you have to be aware, the new retiree, you want to use that check membership eligibility tool. It's a great tool for you. You're hiring somebody back, you may know that they may be at that age, they may be retiring. Go use that check membership eligibility tool. You put in their social security number, their date of birth. If it comes back that they're retired, you know you have to have them go in and complete the return to work form, and you're subject to giving us the alternate contribution rate, or ACR. If you key that in the check membership eligibility and you don't see that they're retired with us, then you're not going to have them complete the return to work form. And if they're meeting membership, they're subject to enrollment and remitting contributions, unless they're 65 and older, and then they can always waive that membership. If they're a direct employee, you have to have them complete that return to work form within 14 days. If they're not a direct employee, that means they're leased or self-employed, they would not complete the return to work form, but you would still have to pay the alternate contribution rate for the indirect employees also. Now let's look at what the employee retiree sees when they go into their personal portal to complete the return to work form. You'll see on the right-hand side, the first box where it says, "Hello, Wendy," that's if you're not retired yet. You can actually go in now yourselves who haven't retired and click on that working after retirement link, and you can do some what ifs, how it might affect you if you think, oh, maybe after so many years I want to come back to work. he'll give you an idea of what your pension, how it may affect your pension, if you qualify or not. The other box, the other arrow under Hello Patricia, retirees, this is what they're going to see. Under the Apply Now, there'll be a Working After Retirement link. When they click that link, this is what they'll see. They'll go into the different page. They will fill out information. Now, when they go in to fill out information, a key thing that they have to understand before they go in is they have to read this material. It talks about all the rules and laws that we've just discussed here today about the return to work. They have to check that box in the bottom left-hand corner before they can continue. The retiree stated they understand the return to work laws. If they have any questions, refer them to the Arizona State Retirement System, and we can discuss the rules with them in more detail. Now, once they go into the screen, they're going to input when will this employment start. They'll put the date. They need to discuss that with you. Then you'll see the two different categories below that. How many hours will you be working per week? Is it less than 20 hours or 20 or more hours? Then how long will you be working in this fiscal year? Is it less than 20 weeks or more than 20 weeks? The retirement system is looking to see if they are meeting the 2020 status. If they select 20 or more hours on both of them and then click Evaluate and they have the termination date, it's going to come back, as you can see up in the red at the top under Working After Retirement Evaluation. Based on what you've told us, you cannot continue to receive your pension and work in terms of your employment. The reason for this, as you go down to the light gray area, the second column, did you terminate at least 365 days before returning to work? You'll see the no. Our system will pick up information on this individual based on that Indian payroll verification form that's input into our system. We know when they terminated. So in this situation, this individual had not been away for more than 365 days, and they were trying to come to work on a 2020 basis. So our system, refer to as the Return to Work Smart Form, is telling this retiree, even before they continue, that this is going to stop their pension. They cannot continue to do this. So this individual, in this example, they select the back button in the bottom left-hand side. Now let's say they go ahead and they correct that. You'll see in green under Working After Retirement, it tells this retiree, based on what you told us, you can continue to receive your pension and work the terms of your employment. They can elect to continue. They'll have to select the radio button, I elect to continue receiving my pension. For some retirees choose to come out of retirement, and they would select the radio button, I elect to suspend my pension. And then they would choose the return to work employer. Either here we have examples, City of Nowhere, but they'll have a list. They'll have the most recent employer they worked for, plus if that's not the employer they're returning to work with, they'll have a list of all the other employers and they can select them. Then they'll select the Submit to Your Employer button. And this will go off to the employer. This information is given to the retiree. It just notifies them that their form is being sent to their employer to be reviewed and sent to the ASRS. And once everything's been processed, the retirement system will send them an email notifying them that it has been processed. For you, the employer who has the return to work role, this is what you'll see. When you go into the employer portal, you're going to select the Review Return to Work forms. Once you go in, you'll see a list of your retirees returning to work. You'll go to the submitted date, that light blue, and you'll select that. That will be a link to that individual, maybe Robert Johnson. When that information opens up, then you'll see this information here. Where the circle goes, this must be reviewed by the employer. Has member terminated employment? Yes or no? If that individual had if the employer had selected last day of membership on the Indian payroll verification form, that has member terminated employment will have a no instead of a yes. When will this employment start? This individual selected February 6, 2017. You as the employer will verify if that's their true employment date coming back to work for you as a retiree. If it's different, you can contact them to make that change. How many hours will the member be working? In this example, it says more than 20. And how many weeks will a member be working for the fiscal year? In this example, more than 20. The action required is very important to you as the employer because it will state what you have to do next. In this example, it's saying ACR is required, employee is eligible and has elected to stay retired. When you see this, this means the retiree qualifies to continue to stay retired and receive their pension and go back to work for you. So if that's the case, then you can elect to approve it. So you would check it. If for some reason this is not the way you wanted it, and you see that the employment date was wrong or the hours of work was not what you wanted, you could select I reject this return to work form. By selecting that radio button, a drop-down box will come up and you can put some notes in there and select that, and this form will go back electronically to the retiree. You would contact them and ask them to correct that return to work form as you agreed to, and then they would resubmit it to you to approve and send on to the Arizona State Retirement System. Another part of this is on the employer information certification. You as the employer would then select the box that says employer certification, that this information is true, and then you would select continue. Before you send this off to the Arizona State Retirement System, you'll have a one-time opportunity to select the button that says export to PDF. This particular program is different than other type of programs in the fact that once you submit the return to work smart form to the Arizona State Retirement, it will not be stored in your portal and you won't be able to reference it. So before you send this off to the Arizona State Retirement System, you can print or electronically archive that form before you send it off to the ASRS. Then you select the submit button, it goes to the ASRS. You, as a review of the return to work form, your responsibilities, you'll need to review and approve or reject the return to work form within 14 days of you receiving the form. You'll have to follow the actions. If it says submit ACR, then you would go ahead and submit the ACR. If you get the action that this person is going to be suspending their pension and you need to start sending in active contributions, then you would need to enroll that individual and start remitting contributions because their pension will be suspended. Again, if you feel that that's not what the individual wanted, you would not submit this to the ASRS. You would hold off, reach out to that retiree and verify if they really want their pension stopped or not. On the contributions ACR, Arizona Revised Statute 38766.02, what this is stating again is ACR for any return to work retiree does not suspend retirement, whether meaning 2020 or not. ACR is due. Whether a direct employee, a leased employee, or an independent contractor, if this individual retiree is in a position that is normally covered by one of your staff, then ACR will be due. Even if the individual has waited beyond 365 days, you still have to give us the ACR. The purpose of the ACR is to mitigate any negative actual impact on the ASRS. What this states is, if we have retirees coming back to work and filling in positions we normally would get retirement contributions from, this would then affect the pension and affect the contribution rates for all the other active employees who haven't retired yet. So the ACR is in place to help mitigate those losses that we would get if we didn't have some type of contribution coming in. So the ACR is for those retirees. You as an employer, your responsibility, you want to make sure you go through the online application system and you want to make sure you submit the ACR for the appropriate retirees. One key thing to understand is under administrative code, employers cannot pass this cost on to employees. You have to set up a certain fund off to the side in a different account to be submitted to the Arizona State Retirement System. You don't want to take this out of their pay to show up on their pay stubs, and you don't want this to show up on their W-2s, because this is a cost to you, the employer. It's not a cost or a benefit to the retirees working for you. Exception, ACR is not required when the return to work retiree is filling in for an active member. An example of this would be, under the law, if you have an active contributing employee that is out on sick leave for 1 week, you bring in a retiree return to work to fill in and substitute for that person for that week. The fact that that employee you're still remitting contributions for that employee on sick leave. That retiree returning to work can work that same week, and you would not be required to give us the ACR. It's a choice by the employer. You could give us the ACR, or you could choose not to give us ACR. But let's say that individual active employee were to work an additional week, but they don't have sick leave, and you still need that retiree to work that additional week to substitute for them or fill in for them. The fact that that active employee does not have sick leave and you don't have contributions to give to the retirement system, you now will have to pay the ACR on that retiree for that second week because that you're not giving us retirement contributions on that employee that's out sick. You can manage this throughout the year and ask that we give back contributions. Another thing you can do is within 90 days of the end of the fiscal year, if you feel that an individual retiree fulfilled this law, that they were actually filling in for an individual that was actively contributing, you can notify us and provide us documentation to prove this. Documentation can be, you can show the contributions for this employee, and you have documentation that the retiree was working during the same time period. You could have the contributions submitted back to you as a credit. Again, that has to be within the end of 90 days of the fiscal year. That concludes the presentation. Just want to let you know in employer relations, we do have our email address. If you have any specific questions, you can email employer relations at asrs.gov. Some of my colleagues, Marina Keefe, Harold Green, Michael Carr, and myself, Michael McCarthy. My supervisor is Patrick Toto, and our employer relations manager is Michelle Briggs. We do thank you for attending this presentation. And again, if you have any specific questions, please refer to the employer manual. Go to that employer reference page. We have guides that will help assist you. But if you have any specific questions, email the employer relations, or please use the employer secure messaging to send specific questions to us.